Just starting to, it's not live yet, but it's on its way.
On my video. Sorry.
That's all right. You got some traffic in the background.
Yeah. Okay, they're good now.
Okay, we should be going live now.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to our conversation here on Laudato Si week. We've got a special guest here, Angélica González Apple from the Global Catholic Climate Movement. Welcome, Angélica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Go ahead, David.
I was gonna say it's great to have you here, and especially coming in on short notice. I appreciate you stepping in and sharing with us today. You know, for a lot of us, the encyclical Laudato Si has significant value. So it's great that the church is celebrating Laudato Si with this Laudato Si week. But maybe you can start off, and Angélica, just talk to us a little bit about who you are and what drew you to this work.
Sounds good. Thank you, David. So what drew me to this work? Well, let me just start off by introducing myself and the role I have with the Global Catholic Climate Movement. I am the project manager for North America. So I oversee all of the United States and Canada, and helping bring the message of Laudato Si to life with our animators and our church communities, and also work with Catholic organizations and ecumenical organizations to bring light to caring for our common home. So that's what I do as a role with GCCM. But how I came to work in this, it's been years that I've worked in the environmental movement and worked to preserve our earth. But within that, my call as a Catholic has always been to connect the dots between our faith and our caring for the earth, but also caring for what creation has and who created it, our creator. So it's about to me, it's always been about loving creation and showing how that love is really showing love for God. And so in my work, I found the Global Catholic Climate Movement and felt that it was a perfect place to be connected and to work with organizations that are being prophetic about that.
Okay. So this has been a passion of yours for a long time.
It sure has, yes. And working with institutions that are prophetic already about it is part of my work. But I think where I gain a lot of inspiration is working with those communities that have not been engaged with ecological conversion, or with people that have not started to work on living Laudato Si. And so I think that's where I gain great pride in working with those and helping educate on how we as a Catholic community can put light into living Laudato Si and caring for our common home.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, can you talk to us more about the Global Catholic Climate Movement? What is that organization? What do they do?
So the Catholic Climate, they hopefully know, and then they're gonna does it make them have to restart again, or just kind of freezes for them?
It will freeze, and I think they'll have to restart and find it again, because it will show up as a second live stream.
It shows live now.
Yeah, it should be live now. I'm double checking, make sure, but I think you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like we're live again. So we'll give people a chance to re-find us and get back into the conversation. But hopefully all the technology will be good to us the rest of the way out. And we'll keep going in this great conversation. So
looks like we're getting people back.
Yeah, it's starting to, everybody's coming back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking with the technological glitches. and finding the video again. So Angelica, you're talking about the global Catholic climate movement, and when we got interrupted. So maybe you can just pick up there again and let us know.
Yes, so happy to share. As I was mentioned before, the Global Catholic Climate Movement, or GCCM as we call it, got started by Tomás Insúa, that was working. He was a scholar, I think, for Harvard, working in the US, and then he was sent to work in the Philippines. And it wasn't until he actually came in contact with the major, I think, typhoon that had hit the Philippines in that time. And he got to work with a lot of the frontline communities that were hit hard, a lot of the poor. And then he made, it's like this light bulb went off and connected this amount of hurricanes hitting these areas is directly linked to climate. And he was working a lot with the vulnerable. And so he said, you know, we can't continue having these two separate conversations. And then obviously turned to Laudato Si. The encyclical had come out that year and shared the same sentiment, where Pope Francis explains in Laudato Si that everything is interconnected, and we cannot continue to have the social justice conversation if we're not having the climate justice conversation. So Tomás was very inspired by that and started really connecting with Catholic institutions. And then obviously he moved to Rome and then made a really good connection with the Vatican's dicastery. So the human development, integral human development part of the dicastery is who Tomás has really been working with, and GCCM, and we're partnering, as you know, with Laudato Si on that as well.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Laudato Si. Maybe you can help those who have either read it or not read it. Like, what do you see as some of the important takeaways from that document?
So first off, I think if you've read it, great. And I'm really glad that many of you have read it. I really invite you to reread it again. This is a great opportunity, since many of us are kind of stuck at home. We're looking for that one book to read. This is it. And for the ones you haven't, this is an opportunity to pick it up. It's an easy read. It's broken up by chapters. There's a big portion of Laudato Si encyclical that asks to see, judge, and act. And that's really the purpose of Laudato Si. It's not your typical environmental, let's talk about all the doom and gloom, and then we leave you there. The encyclical and the way Pope Francis shared on Our Common Home, it points out issues and invites us all to the table for the conversation, and helps us reflect on how we've lived, and then how we can positively move forward on this, and then how do we open up dialogue. So the message behind Laudato Si is really to express that everything in our world is interconnected. We are interconnected with one another, we're interconnected within each other's communities, and we're interconnected with the environment. And so we can't see those two things separate. And we also can't see social issues and economic issues separate. And we can't see social issues with environment separate. They're all one, and it helps guide us to how we can have that conversation on a positive note. It's not to blame. It's not here to sit and point fingers. It's really to reflect. And I think one thing that I really take away from Laudato Si, and there's a message that Pope Francis sends to all of us, is to have that part of that C, to slow down our lives. Because I think what's so prophetic about this book is that, in this encyclical, is that he sheds light onto how we got here, how we got to a point where our poor and our vulnerable have gotten forgotten, and how our environment has been mistreated for so many, many years. It's because we've been living in this term that he coined, rapidification. We've been moving too fast. And when we know that in our own lives, when we're moving too fast, we tend to neglect things that are important, or we leave out the details. And so he calls us in the encyclical to slow down our lives, to slow and reflect and analyze what are the areas that we can, at our home, change. And then what are the areas we can judge and see what's happening within our local community, and then obviously in the global perspective. And then he invites us to act, because that's part of our mission also as Catholics. It's not just to know the scriptures, to read, to show up at church. It's to be prophetic, to act, to share with one another the value of our teaching. And we can only do that by living it out, by being the model. And so many of our saints, and including our popes as well, have shown us the model. And so that's why I think the Laudato Si encyclical is an easy read for all ages, especially for your teenagers at home. You want to give them some insight and they want to go out and change the world. I think this is the footsteps. This really guides you step by step on how to do this, and then how to integrate those conversations with people. So to me, I think my biggest takeaway is that it shows us that everything is interconnected, and help us step away from our little bubble where we think we're in our own world and we don't see how we're related to another organization or how we're related to each other. So it's important to acknowledge that in order to be able to make changes.
Yeah, excellent, Angelica, that was great. Gave people a very accessible invitation to Laudato Si, and some good highlights from it. I really do. I'm drawn to that same rapidification phrase, and and all of the things that are going on because of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the positives for many has been a de-rapidification of our lives. So hopefully those of us who have that space, who this has created that space, can use that space positively. So Laudato Si Week provides a great opportunity to do just that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Laudato Si Week. What is it? How, why is it happening? Let's start there.
All right. So Laudato Si is a global campaign sponsored by the Vatican's Dicastery of Integral Human Development. And we joined with them, Global Catholic Climate Movement, to spread the word about Laudato Si. Obviously, a lot of the plans behind Laudato Si Week was to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the encyclical, and to go out. We were going to ask our organizations and our partners and our communities to go out, create events, do marches, prayer services, vigils. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And so we, as the world was transitioning and coping and struggling, we said we can't forget that the message behind Laudato Si and the crisis between COVID-19 is very similar, in the sense that Laudato Si is to promote caring for our common home, but to interconnect everything. And so we said we are going to honor the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si, but use this as an opportunity to bring all Catholics together throughout the world, to use this as a time to connect and to be in solidarity with one another. And then how we can connect the similarities between the virus and what's happening with the climate, and seeing the connections between, it's an emergency. There's people suffering on all global scale, and we need to act. And so Laudato Si Week is May 16th through the 24th. A lot of information from the Global Catholic Climate Movement can be found on our website, which is laudatosiweek.org. There on our website, you have information of all our partners, all our Catholic institutions that have joined in and said and made the commitment that they were also going to have events and prayer services and outdoor masses and spread the word to their network of people. And like I said, if Laudato Si's message was so that Catholics around the world can help build a better world together. And that was really the message behind Laudato Si Week. We're honoring this encyclical. We're honoring that 800 years ago, Saint Francis had the call from Jesus to take his church and rebuild it. And Pope Francis, now 800 years forward, wrote the encyclical and said, let's take their church and rebuild, and let's take our creation and heal it. And so in a sense, it's using those two parallel comparisons to our call as Catholics, and seeing it as one body, one church, stepping together and being in solidarity with one another. And so what you find on our resources is, you know, we had a retreat this weekend. There's on the website a numerous amount of events from our partner organizations, like doing prayer services, doing outdoor masses. Our animators are also posting their events on the website. Many prayer services happening in significant countries, prayer services happening globally. We have reflection also on the comparison between the climate crisis and the COVID virus. So there's ways that you can get on the website and go through a self-reflection, different resources on prayer and how to help bring this message to your community. So that's really what we're doing. We really wanted to build a network of our partners that we can, although they're working on different work on their own, maybe it's social justice, but we wanted them to make a commitment, and then let's all as Catholics spread the voice and live Laudato Si. So that's really what Laudato Si week is.
Okay. Now you mentioned a retreat that happened this weekend. For those who maybe are first hearing about Laudato Si week now and are like, oh, I would have really enjoyed, or it would have been a great experience for me to have that retreat. Is it recorded, or is there other opportunities that people might have to do something like that?
Definitely, it is recorded, and we will be getting all that up to the Laudato Si website. For all the listeners that would like to participate in events, say, well, there's nothing happening locally with me or my organization or my parish. If you go onto the Laudato Si website, laudatosiweek.org website, you will find an enormous amount of events. Within those events are a list of all the GCCM events that are being put every day. There's one. So there's from eco-spiritual seminars. We have priests that are from the Vatican also talking on the See, Judge, Act. There's going to be talks on sessions on eco-conversion and how does that occur and what is that. We broke up the whole week to help people get engaged, especially the ones that, you know, I'm working in different things and I can't join all the seminars. They will be recorded and shared. You can also join via social media and YouTube. So a lot of those sessions will be recorded on there. And then follow us. Like I think the more you join Twitter, Instagram, and you find Laudato Si Generation, Live Laudato Si through GCCM, you will see the different ways you can get engaged. There's going to be prayer services. One thing that we are asking, if you can't join any of those sessions, webinars, on May 24th, there is a global prayer. And it's not you connect to anything. It's just you in your own local time at 12 p.m. Sorry, at 12 noon. You download the prayer card and read the prayer for our common home. And that is one way to engage. There's going to be many Catholics throughout the world doing that at the same time. And if you're on Twitter, you see all of Pope Francis's messages yesterday and today, just really tweeting about Laudato Si week and showing us ways that we can engage. But yes, definitely tune into the website and you'll see all the recordings there. And if you can join us live, that would be great as well.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned animators. Can you talk about what an animator is, and if somebody is interested in becoming one, what they would have to do to become an animator?
Sure. And I think a lot of the conversation that we've just had right now about Laudato Si and joining these prayer services, retreats, I meet a lot of people that say, I'm fired up. I read Laudato Si. I went to a service and now I want to do something in my community. I just don't know how. And so the Global Catholic Climate Movement has put together a program that's called the Animators Program. And anybody is welcome to join. We have it probably 3 times a year. And it's designed to help build resources for you to learn ways to read Laudato Si, analyze it, understand how you can then be prophetic about it within your community. It teaches you also the webinar series, how to build a community within your local group. And then it's broken up into different webinars. So there's a webinar on the See, there's a webinar on how to judge, there's a webinar on how to act. There's a webinar to teach you how to do prayer services. And then within that webinar series, you sign up and you have a platform and you can join with other animators throughout the world, and you dialogue on what's going on in Poland and what's happening in Kenya, and how can we work together to get that message across. If it's something related to hunger, how do I do something in my parish but highlight how that ties into Laudato Si, and then share the stories around the globe. And I think the animators program is really great because it gives people the opportunity to interact with one another, but it really gives people the opportunity to dive into the encyclical, and then you're getting sessions that are being put together by different leaders within Catholic organizations that are already working in the field. So you get the one-on-one really. We've had like one of our steering committee members, Jeb Sanyo, he's a director of the Philippines in Greenpeace. So you hear their direct connection to their work and how they're prophetic about it, and then what's happening locally in their area. So you go through the animators training, you have to do a capstone project at the end. It's usually like a 3-month program, but you meet once a week and you come up with the capstone project. And then from there, you're certified. You're a certified Global Catholic Climate Movement animator, and you are now welcome to go out into your parish, into your local ministry, and start the conversation with your community. And Pope Francis says that a lot in Laudato Si, that it is hard to do this alone. And so it needs to be an ecological conversion of a community. And so the animator program is throughout the world. But here in the US, we have an enormous amount of animators that started off doing small little works within their parish, and now they've grown to what we call Laudato Si circles. They're hosting prayer services, and then they've gotten really established where now the animators have a Laudato Si chapter. So they're not only just doing prayer services, but being active in their parish, but they're doing a lot of advocacy work. And it's a good place to support one another, and it's a good place to have the interconnection between some of the ministries within the churches. So some of the ministries are like the St. Vincent de Paul Society and the Knights of Columbus. Like, how are their goals intertwined with this? And then so they're opening up the dialogue, which is really great for parishes. And so that's one thing that I've seen within the animators program. They felt like, what could I really do a difference? And then they come through the program, felt that they felt supported, and then they have connection obviously with staff that can help provide them with resources, and the program's free. So it's just a matter of utilizing your time and finding out what's this block that I can do. The next animator program, we're hoping it can come out in July, tentative dates, but you would find that on the Global Catholic Climate Movement website, and you scroll on the bottom and then it says, becoming an animator, and gives you what animators are doing around the world, and then how you sign up. So as soon as we have that program already date specific, you will find a registration part on the website, and you just register and then wait to hear when the sessions are going to be announced. And it's a great program. I hear lots of feedback, and you don't have to be an expert on Laudato Si. You don't have to be an expert on the environment. You just want to be part of the Catholic community, really wanting to preserve our common home.
Excellent. So will those sessions most likely be done online?
Yes, so they're all online sessions, and that's kind of the good thing. Before the pandemic, everything that we did for animators was already online. So there wasn't anything that we had to do to prepare more for that. All our sessions are online. And even if the schedule doesn't work with you, they're recorded sessions as well. So if you can't join, it's in the morning, and then maybe your time zone, it's more in the evening, and you have some other type of priority or work, you can join them later. You just fulfill the different modules of like, you turn in text and dialogue and your presentation, but it's the same program, and you just turn in your capstone project. So it's great because it works with a lot of people's schedule. Usually the sessions are only about an hour long, so it's doable. And there's not too much work required. I think the benefit that I hear, the sentiment I hear from a lot of animators, they're just glad to be able to connect with other people around the globe that are also sharing their same concerns. And then they hear the direct connection with, people in Kenya right now suffering through floods, and they get to share their perspective of what they're seeing in the US or in different parts of Canada. So it's just really good to get people connected with one another.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what Pope Francis said was about it's hard to do this work alone is very prophetic.
Yes.
Just from my experience and talking to people who are trying to engage in this type of work, it can feel isolating in Vancouver, whether you're in Vancouver, Washington, or in Kenya. You know, what difference can I make? Just myself here, and sometimes even trying to engage, like you said, engage the rest of your community can be challenging. People don't necessarily aren't always supportive of efforts. So if thinking about Laudato Si week and, you know, ways that we can get involved this week and beyond, I'd love to hear ideas that you have for folks on ways that people can be involved in living out Laudato Si, even in small personal ways or in larger global ways. And secondly, before you answer that, I just want to encourage anybody watching, if you've got questions, just post them to the chat in this video, and we'll ask them to Angélica here and see what other things people want to know.
Yes, thank you. I would start off by saying something that Pope Francis shared in Laudato Si, where he says, you know, truly much can be done. There is a lot to be done. And I think starting how you begin to do this work. If you go on to the Global Catholic Climate Movement, we have something that's called the Laudato Si Pledge. And that's something Pope Francis also embraced and said, let's start there. If you've read Laudato Si and you think that's already a step in the right direction. And then once you read that, I think it's important, if we're going to go out to the communities and we're going to go out into our parishes, we have to also do a self-reflection in the ways we've been living. And so we have the Laudato Si Pledge. And if you go onto the website, you'll see the pledge. And the number one thing it's asking you is to pray for creation. And so that's our first step. We want to pray and have God help discern, and what is it our real want to do in this. And then how much can we give time to this, and how prophetic do we want to be out? So it's really doing a self-reflection. And then after we're done praying with it, and then we kind of feel like, okay, I'm ready to do this. You don't want to take on too much, because then, like you said, it's not always easy. There is the reality of it that many people aren't going to be on the same page with you. And that's okay. And that's okay to understand that all ministries are working on their own things. Sometimes we're very short in capacity within our parishes. So sometimes we go out there and we're motivated, and we go to our parish pastor and he's overwhelmed. And to add one more ministry, sometimes for one parish, it's a lot to do. So we want to pray about it, and we want to pray that if things don't always work out, we're going to keep trying, because we're people of hope. And then your second thing is we want to look at ourselves, and we want to live more simply. So if we're going to go out and tell people that they should live simply, we also need to look at our own lives. And then lastly, on the Laudato Si Pledge, it asks us to advocate. So we're going to advocate for our common home. And then in the pledge, so you make this commitment to yourself. And then you can write maybe additional things you might want to do. So if it's to start a Care for Creation ministry within your parish, maybe kind of do an outline, but you commit to do it in a year or 6 months. Maybe for some of you, it's going to be, I read the Laudato Si, I've looked at the pledge, but now I want to take the animators course, and I want to learn how to give seminars within my parish. And you write it down. You take that pledge and you make a commitment to yourself. And then you look back in a couple months and you say, well, how am I doing with this? Because just our own journey is just the same how it is for other people. Many times it's easy to tell other people how to be, but it's not always easy to live it our own. So I think that's, to me, the first step. And once you make that commitment, then you start to see that passion just driving you, and doors start to open up. You're going to meet somebody within your parish, or maybe another parish, that you put together a common event, and then the conversation sparks from there. And you do the same thing. You would invite them in. Let's take the Laudato Si Pledge, and then let's commit to this. And so they're bite-sized pieces that we all can help as one team do rather than one person take it on their own. Because I've seen that many times where people are very passion driven and they go to their parish and they say, I want to make this change. And they're like, whoa, 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 you just came at us. We had this whole plan. Pastoral council didn't have this plan, so you're going to have to wait. And then kind of the fire dwindles a little bit. So if they have a team and they have a plan, we can keep the fire burning. And if not, there's other events that you can participate nationwide. You can help participate in different ways. And you can meet the parish where its needs are. So maybe it would be just kind of interviewing the pastoral counselor, your parish pastor, and say, what are some of the needs of the church? And many of them will be honest, like, we don't have a recycling program. That would be great. That would help save money. Maybe it's St. Vincent de Paul or some of the Catholic relief services. We need to gather food and goods. And in that conversation, we could kind of use what they're already planned and say, we can talk about hunger. And then we can talk about hunger in the world and how that's connected to climate. So it's being adaptable, and it's about being continuing this mission and this ministry, as I call it, as a way of being hopeful and not letting that fire burn. Because Pope Francis is calling us to work together and to open up dialogue and to not look at this calling to care for common home as a burden, where it you know, there's so much darkness in the world, and we see it now, that as you're walking into the darkness, that we people that care for common home be that light, and we're walking into that darkness with the light, that not let the darkness take you in. So we are Easter people, and we have to continue being hopeful. And I think Laudato Si shares a lot of that hope. And that's why I think if there is times where you feel, you know, it's too much, even in social justice work, there is times where it just gets so overwhelming, and you feel like this is too much. I can't make the big difference that the world needs to see. It is the small actions in the world and the groups of people within our parishes that are making the change in the world.
That's great. Thank you, Angélica. Let's see if we've got any questions from folks. One question is, you mentioned about a connection between the virus and caring for God's creation earlier on. Can you talk a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Yes. So I'll mention a little bit here, but if you really want to dig deep into it, you can find all that on laudatosiweek.org under coronavirus tab. And like I said, there's a lot of reflections on it. But a couple of things that I wanted to highlight on that. I had mentioned before that both are global emergencies. And so just as people quickly acted on the virus and said, for our own health, we need to protect each other, and we need to protect one another, and especially the most vulnerable. Many people have made that connection about the climate crisis, where it is a global emergency and many are not acting as it is an emergency. We've given different scenarios of like a house is on fire. And if your house was on fire, your first thing to do is obviously grab your family and run out and in panic, because you don't want to get hurt, but you need to do something to put that fire out, unless you just let it burn. And so you're putting water on it. You're doing everything you possibly can. And so that's where we're at right now with the virus, where people are trying to figure out every possible way to end this and to let people go back to their lives and keep people safe and healthy. And across the globe, we're facing different issues with environment. In some parts, we just had an interview last week with the priest in the Amazon, and seeing that the mining extraction is really devastating to the indigenous communities and making them move out of their area. That is a crisis, but it's not global. You don't hear it on the news every day. You may hear about it, they're local, and then people just move on. The air quality issues are, throughout many big cities, and children are affected and elderly are affected every day by respiratory illnesses. But because it's a slow moving progress, people don't act on it it's like an emergency, but it's happening. So there's that connection between that. Another one is that both are connected to how they're impacting the poor and the vulnerable. And so we know that the virus, when you have the ability to go to the doctor and to get resources. Many have survived it and others haven't, but the poor and the vulnerable that do not have those resources or access, it has been very crucial to them, especially in the stay home. You know, many people, it's between life of being stuck at home and not surviving because all they do is sell things on the streets in their communities, and then dying of hunger because they had to pick or choose. And so the virus, and then because we have colleagues throughout the world, we get to hear many of our food banks in the US, yes, there's long lines, but we do know that there's food and there's food available in many parts of the world. And our colleagues are saying that the food banks that they have are so far away from the poorest community, they don't have means to get there. And when they finally get there, there is no food. So the lack of resources, and again, the climate is, when we know that major hurricanes hit, they usually hit the areas where it's mostly poor and vulnerable. And air quality issues, it's usually where the refinery communities, it's usually the area that's the poor and the vulnerable. So there's those just direct connections where the ecological crisis is impacting the poor and will continue to impact the poor. And the ways that they can maybe get away from it is migration, if they can, and others just stay there to take the brunt of it. And then same with the virus. And then lastly, the other thing that I shared is that both can be solved with people being together. So the positive note of it is that if, you know, as we're came together, and many of our commercials and our leaders have said, we're in this together for the virus, people have stepped forward, and you hear every day, you know, heroes amongst our communities doing all kinds of acts of kindness with the ecological crisis as well. We are beacons of hope. And if we're doing that locally, that is a big scale. If we're helping our neighbors and we're helping the poor and vulnerable within our local communities, those are like ripple effects that are going throughout the world. And many people, like I said before, feel overwhelmed, and they kind of tend to be reclusive, and it's like, it's too much, I can't handle it. And then that's where I think many times we're called as Catholics to be in the front lines. And when we see both pandemic and ecological crisis, that is when we're supposed to hit the streets and really share the voice, whether it's virtually right now where we can, about prayer services and being people of hope. And then when we can, doing things virtually to talk about the ecological crisis, just like you're doing now. How can we shed light onto Laudato Si? And so I think those are one of the three main points on how those are connected. But like I said, you're welcome to go onto the website. It gives you really good questions to reflect on it. And going back to the See Judge Act, that can help people. And then especially talk to people that can't see the dots connect. I think that's really right now where we're seeing people join these virtual calls. If you have that family member that just like, I don't want to hear it, I don't see the connection between it, it would be a good way to kind of invite the conversation on a very kind and positive way to say, hey, let's just talk about this. And how do we, you know, put two and two together, and maybe from there, they might be inspired and they might be going towards this ecological conversion. And you thought, wow, I was just going to leave them alone and not talk to them about this. But I really do feel that we are the people that can help bring that dialogue.
Great, thank you for
Welcome.
that. So, well, I was thinking, if to close, I know the prayer that is supposed to happen on May 24th at noon. I thought we could preview it and close with the prayer. I've got it here. I'm going to try to put it up on the screen so that everyone can see and we can pray it together. So let's see if this works. Can you see it there, Angélica?
I can, yes, and thank you for sharing that. I also had on my screen, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to share it. Thank you.
Oh, sure, yeah, we were both ready. So I'm gonna see. Looks like it's showing up on Facebook now too. So so let's pray together this prayer, and I hope everybody will following along can pray it with us. but I'll begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Creator of heaven and earth and all that is in them, you created us in your own image and made us stewards of all your creation. You blessed us with the sun, water, and bountiful land so that all might be nourished. Open our minds and touch our hearts so that we may attend to your gift of creation. Help us to be conscious that our common home belongs not only to us, but to all of your creatures and to all future generations, and that it is our responsibility to preserve it. May we help each person secure the food and resources that they need. Be present to those in need in these trying times, especially the poorest and those most at risk of being left behind. Transform our fear and feelings of isolation into hope and fraternity so that we may experience a true conversion of the heart. Help us to show creative solidarity in addressing the consequences of the global pandemic. Make us courageous to embrace the changes that are needed in search of the common good. Now more than ever, may we feel that we are all interconnected and interdependent. Enable us to listen and respond to the cries of the earth and the cry of the poor. May the present suffering be the birth pangs of a more fraternal and sustainable world. Under the loving gaze of Mary, help of Christians, may we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father and the Son.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Angélica. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today as we continue Laudato Si week. And like you mentioned, encourage people to go to the Laudato Si week webpage, look at the resources, find out ways to get involved. The retreat will be posted there. Any of the talks will be posted there. So it was great. It was really wonderful to have your perspective and to share what brings you to continue to act on behalf of God's creation.
Thank you. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to be with you all there. Like David said, you can find all those resources there on our website, but most importantly for you to see the different organizations that many of you probably already work with. They're partners of Laudato Si Week, and you can see their events shared. So please share that within your community. Another thing that I would just like to add, you'll see one of our big partners is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops for Laudato Si Week, and they're also sharing a prayer card. And I would just like to end with reading that because their prayer card, it's children. You can find it on their website, but it has children hugging the earth, and the earth is a little cracked. But on there, on the back of the card, it says, as Catholics, we are called to uphold life and the dignity of each human person. We support families and future generations. We love the poor and the vulnerable. We advocate for basic rights and a just economy. We're in solidarity with us all and one human family, and we care for God's creation. And so I invite you all to participate in Laudato Si in any way you can. And if it is just praying, and if it is just reflecting at home, that's a lot. So thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to be with you all. And I'm here as a resource. If you have any further questions, if you need, you go ahead and ask David and you could forward them to me. I'm happy to help. If you need help with the Animators program or connecting with anybody in your area that are maybe already have a chapter or a Laudato Si circle or any other, resources that you may need to move. But I think the most prophetic thing that Pope Francis says that we can do this together, and we as Catholics are those beacons of hope. So thank you very much.
Excellent, Angélica. Thank you so much. Can I ask you one question before I let you go? There's something steaming off to your side. I was just wondering.
Oh, sorry. That's my little diffuser.
Okay.
Essential oils. You're thinking, oh my gosh, your house is literally on fire. No, it's my diffuser essential oil. I always put some type of essential oil. I like always, it gives me, either it's for the scent, or it's calming, or I have a lot of kids always, if you saw them pop into the videos, but try to kind of keep lavender going and calm the house down a little bit.
Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, I'm glad your house isn't on fire.
Yeah.
All right, Angélica, well, thank you again for being here, taking the time with us. We're very grateful for that.
Same to you. Thank you for all the work you all do. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we're not alone in the struggle.
That's very true. We're not alone.
All right,
Take care.
Angélica.
Bye, everyone.